more on this, we're joined from Beirut by the financial market analyst, Mr. Banna. Mr. Banna, welcome to Q News. How should we interpret Iran's statement about this new equation in the Strait of Hormuz? Is this rhetorical or does it signal a real shift on the ground? Will this be the norm now?
Good morning to you and to everyone. Thank you for having me here today. The Iranians are mentioning that due to the war and what's happening, the Americans are disrupting the Strait of Hormuz, which affecting the global economy. That's what they are saying. Also, the American says that it's related to the freedom of navigations. As a word, which means that both are trying to use the Strait of Hormuz as a paper of victory, which means President Trump tried to do the blockade to pressure the Iranians economy to make them not to export oil or carpets or pistachios, so which means we have a lot of pressure on the Iranian currencies due to this, since the exports are near zero somehow. Which is affecting the global economy, and of course, due to the close of Strait of Hormuz, which increased the tension and the escalation that happened yesterday on the Iranians put to targeted missiles related to the U.S. ship, which means the escalation increase, and they targeted Emirat, which means the oil increase. So now what's really happening is a lot of pressure, a lot of escalations happening, and the financial markets are moving based on those factors. In my opinion, the Strait of Hormuz, if it remains closed, will have more impact on the global economy, since the price of oil is above 100, since like from last week, still above 100. And of course, during the war, it also increased, which means the global economies are under pressure, which is affecting the whole economy, starting off the Europe nation related to the stagflation possibility, which means the high inflation, and at the same time lower in the economy, which means the growth of the economy, which means the Europe are facing a huge problem in stagflation. In addition to that, the US also having a possibility of stagflation due to the rise of inflation again, and of course the emerging markets who are pressured due to the high inflation, high oil prices, which led to a high US dollar, which led to more pressure on the currencies, which is
Yes.
affecting the whole economy.
Well, the impact on global economies and global markets is undeniable, but focusing on the actual strait, to what extent do you think this indicates the change in the rules of engagement or the control of one of the world's most critical energy routes?
In my opinion, of course, the close of Strait of Hormuz changed a lot of factors. Iranian used it as a part of a leverage. However, President Trump took it, so he used a blockade, which is affecting. So in the same time, he took the leverage that they had, which means the Strait of Hormuz now remains a risk. Even when the war ends, this strait will remain a high risk, since anytime it can happen, this tension again, which why the economies or the countries are trying to find a substitute way to pass, which means the Saudi Arabia part, which is like it is in her 2030 plans, which is to use it as a place to transfer the shipments and the supplies and goods, which now we are talking about it, but Saudi Arabia could be part of it, and they are thinking related to it, which means in the upcoming future, the passes of those ships inside the Strait of Hormuz will decrease, and they will start to find new ways, like in Saudi Arabia, like it can also go outside the Strait of Hormuz, but it will take more days,
Hmm.
which means everything is affecting due to this war. In my opinion, after this war, they will start investing, they will start trying to find another routes in order to protect themselves, as the insurance companies, by the way, will put Strait of Hormuz as a high risk, which means higher insurance cost, which is also part of the cost which will affect the inflation even in the future, even when things are cooled down and everything is okay, let's say, we will have the same problem, which is higher inflation higher insurance costs due to the higher shipments since we are not passing through the Strait of Hormuz, which in my opinion again we are changing the global economy by this move in the Middle East mainly.
Well, would you agree with Iran is blaming the US and its allies for undermining shipping security? How credible would you take these claims? How should markets then interpret them?
In my opinion, the claims that they are using is trying to pressure President Trump since they want the global countries to tell President Trump to a little bit to stop, try to pressure him to stop. That's why they are doing both claims. In addition to that, President Trump is doing also claims related to to show them that they had a victory mainly, which why both, in my opinion, are trying to sound like they had a victory, which is really it's not. So in the meantime, this will continue. This escalations might rise again, but in a limited way, in order to go to the negotiation like both they had a victory, since they won't sit down to each other, facing each other, unless they sounded like both had a victory. So that's why, in my opinion, it might take a little time to have this negotiation, since they need to show the world that they won. So President Trump did it. Also, the Iranians is trying to do it again. So in the meantime, this escalation might have escalation in the near future, but in a limited way. So in this limited way, like yesterday what happened in this case, they will sit together to a negotiations, and they might have a cease as a truce mainly related to this, but until then we might have a limited escalation in the meantime.
Yes, well, what would be the biggest risks or the biggest short-term impact if it does escalate on the global oil supply and shipping flows if they do escalate further?
If they do escalate further, in my opinion, the risk is high, since they targeted yesterday UAE, the Fujairah, which is where the oil produced there, they produce oil. So if they targeted again those, and if they targeted the Saudi Arabia oil places and oil producers, also and also related to the gas, so this escalation might increase and the price of oil might spike again, like what happened yesterday due to this. The reason why yesterday the price of oil increased and today it's decreasing, it's related to the market is pricing a limited target, which is why we are like it's things are cooling down. But if we might do another hit related to the oil, we might see another spike, which it will not be a benefit to anyone, since each country is trying to lower the oil prices under 100 in order to protect themselves. So in the meantime, the risk is high, in my
Yes.
opinion. If the escalation increase, the risk is very high, since a spike again and breaking $120 per barrel will cost the global economy a lot of problems mainly.
Would that in turn affect the insurance costs, the shipping routes, and also the freight markets?
Of course, that's what I am mentioning. I mentioned before that the insurance cost will increase, since it is now a high possibility that they might, let's say, the shipment might get an attack due to this. They might target some shipments. So of course, the insurance in the end they think about their money in the end. So they are trying to increase the insurance cost, and this will happen, already happened, and it might increase it again due to the high possibility of risk what's happening, since the insurance calculate the risk. They don't, in my opinion, they don't like care about what's happening. They also they care for their insurance, they care for the shipments that they are insured by them, they care for the cost and for the risk. So the risk is high, which means the insurance is also high, and of course the shipment price will increase due to the high cost and high oil prices, etc.
Mhm. Well, the Asian economies would definitely be affected by all of this immediately, and Europe is not is not safe as well. Do you think that developed economies in Europe can do something to actually help mitigate the effects of these disruptions?
In my opinion, the 2022 war between Russia and Ukraine affected them due to the shock of oil, which led to a high inflation and low growth, and which means stagflation. In addition to that, the production in Germany is weak due to the high competition from China. China has a higher output and lower cost, which the Germans can't face it really. So it's also affecting the growth. In my opinion, after they exited from this oil shock, they entered again to this oil shock, which is the American and Iranian war, which is affecting again. In my opinion, it is now hard to do it since they are still exposed to the price of oil and price of gas. So this war will let them learn that they might change. They have to change, not they might, but they have to change to and go to the sustainable energy and sustainable related to green energy and etc. to lower the exposure to the oil prices to prevent this from happening again in the future. They want to protect themselves. The developed countries inside Europe, I think it is hard since even France has a huge debt, which is affecting also uncertainty related to the politics. In addition to that, as I mentioned, to Germany. So every country inside Europe are like trying to move and to survive. So it's hard to move again and higher the growth, which why the European Central Bank is in a place that they have to intervene, but they didn't. Yani they didn't raise the interest rate or something. They are waiting to see what they might happen, as they might do a fiscal policy and not a monetary policy to push the economy a little bit, and at the same time to protect themselves from the inflation really, which is also the Asian part. يعني, in my opinion, the war between Iran and America is related in an indirect war related to China due to the technology compete with the US.
Mm-hmm. What would you say would be the key indicators that we should be watching for in the coming days to assess whether the situation is going to be stabilizing or worsening?
There is a lot of key factors. First of all, the negotiations, the tweets that President Trump is doing. So we need to focus on it. In addition to that, from the Iranians also, since both are trying to put they are everything is good, etc. Like President Trump yesterday. So what's really happening is we should focus on both, and we should focus on the recent tension that happened yesterday. If the Emirates want to attack Iran due to this to what happened there. However, in my opinion, the Gulf regions are focusing well. They are doing it really well, not entering into a war with Iran. In addition to that, in my opinion, the key factors are the Pakistan place, which is the main key factor. That Pakistan is trying so hard to put them into negotiations. As I mentioned, they won't do negotiation unless they claim victory, both of them, to face each other. So before that, we might have some escalations, some limited escalations, but in my opinion, it will be a positive thing since they might go into a negotiations and both they claim that they have victory. So we will face a little bit of tension. So they might agree to the truce in the future and to prevent this from happening in the future, since the ceasefire from 2024 or 25 war didn't like sustain till now. So
Yes.
that's why we want a bigger time frame for really a truce.
Mm-hmm. From Beirut, that was the financial market analyst, Mr. Daniel Banna. Mr. Banna, thank you very much for joining us.